Hello guys and welcome back to my channel. We're gonna talk about relapses today. And I found this great definition earlier on the internet. If you don't want to define it like this, it's completely fine, but I thought it might help to get another perspective. So it basically said a lapse is like a little slip. So if we're talking about eating disorder recovery, it's like, you skipped a meal or didn't eat what you actually wanted to eat and went for the quote-unquote safer version. A relapse is a longer period of those slips. So if you yourself continuously skipping meals or choosing low-calorie foods, that would be a relapse. And then a collapse would be going really downhill, and if you might need more treatment or you need more help. Again, this is just a definition. You don't have to apply it to yourself. But that being said, let's start into the video. It's very, very important to say a relapse or a lapse or whatever you want to call it is no sign of weakness, failure, and it also doesn't mean the inability to recover, because that's what we're often telling ourselves. I personally was the other way around, and I always thought my struggles do not count if I didn't lose enough weight. So if I felt like I was slipping, I wouldn't take myself seriously and wouldn't validate my issues because I thought, oh, I didn't lose enough weight. I want to point out that your relapse matters and that you should validate your issues, no matter if you lost weight or not. It doesn't mean you're weak if you didn't, and it also doesn't mean you're weak if you did. Because in the end, a relapse just shows you that you need more or better coping mechanisms, right? Because otherwise you wouldn't have relapsed. Especially in eating disorder recovery, but also in recovery from other addictions, the first year is most of the times the hardest. So studies have shown that the first 12 to 18 months are actually have the highest relapse rates. In eating disorder recovery, it's between 31 and 35%. I personally actually think it's more, because I know a lot of people who actually go back and forth for a whole year. If that's not the case for you, you're doing nothing wrong. But I just want to point out that this is kind of normal, and it doesn't mean that you can't recover. You just have to keep going. When it comes to eating disorders, depending on what kind of eating disorder you're trying to recover from, there are a few signs that point out that you might be on the way to a relapse. If you feel like you're returning to an obsession with food and or weight, or you find yourself working out more or working out at all if you promise yourself to stop working out, or also if you feel like you're more zoned out, more isolated, more anxious, or even more depressed. These are all warning signs for a relapse in eating disorder recovery. It's very, very important to understand the triggers. And of course, everyone has different triggers. They can be very personal. Sometimes it's a big change, like a move, school starting or ending, losing someone, grieving. Also, a strong combination between the eating disorder and your self-esteem, which is very normal in the first month still. Many people actually identify themselves over their eating disorders, and so in the first few months or even the first year, it's very common to feel lower self-esteem because they're letting their eating disorder go. But the good thing is they make place for something real and for real self-esteem. But we're gonna get back to that later. Oftentimes it's also negative self-talk, oh my god, I'm so lazy, I'm so fat. All the things we're just saying to ourselves. I know it's super hard, but it can be really worth it to work on the self-talk and about the things you're saying to yourself. And if the motivation to recover was very low from the beginning, chances are that a relapse or a lapse happens. It happens especially when people are recovering for someone else or when they are forced to recover without having any motivation for themselves. These are some common triggers, but oftentimes it's simply the feeling of, I can't handle this weight. And for me, that was a case. I mean, looking back, I see now that there were more triggers involved, but I still just had to cope with this feeling of, I can't handle the weight gain. And that can be a trigger enough. So it's very, very important to find coping mechanism, because you have to handle the weight gain if you want to recover. And it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do. I promise you that. But once you go through it, you're going to be so much stronger and live a full life. I promise you that. So let's talk about finding ways to handle those situations. First of all, it's very, very important to have some kind of support system. I know that not everyone is privileged enough to be able to have therapy or to have a great connection to their families. Some people also struggle with isolation because they don't find friends, but it's very important to find someone or some kind of support system. This can even be pets, like my little guy in the back there. Whatever helps you, whatever kind of support system you need. It can also be YouTube. Like, I'm just mentioning it because I found myself watching YouTube videos all night long when I was like on the edge to relapse. And it was very helpful for me to watch all those people who recovered and who talked about the same things that I struggled with, and seeing I'm not alone, but they made it through. So I will make it through as well, which is the reason why I started this whole account. Overall, it's super important to understand your triggers and to understand what your subconscious mind wants to tell you. And the next step would be to find healthy coping mechanisms. And I know that can be super hard. I made a short video about it, talking about ways to cope when you're like on the edge of a relapse, like going outside, being creative, all those things. But in the end, you have to find your own coping mechanisms. And I know it's super hard. I promise you, it's possible. For me, it was also super helpful to like write down motivational quotes. Like, there were so many quotes that actually motivated me. I was talking about the point of no return in my other video. That can be something, or like whatever quote helps you. Or our brains were completely different. I'm also a person who's like very sensitive to pictures. So I would also make a collage of pictures that actually inspired me, like outfits I wanted to wear that I simply didn't have the curves for, or like people in bigger bodies that look beautiful to me, or trips I wanted to take, or like all the food I wanted to taste. Like all those pictures, whatever helps you. You can make a collage out of pictures and quotes. Whatever helps you look at on those days that are very hard. I also mentioned that before, but it's very important to, if you don't want to quit social media, to unfollow everyone who could potentially trigger you. I know the internet is a very open space, you can always be triggered, but unfollow all those healthy influencers, all those fitness influencers, like whoever triggers you, just unfollow them. You can decide in 2 or 3 years if you want to follow them again, but for now, just unfollow them. Recovery looks very different for everyone. It might be faster for you or take way longer. There might be more lapses or relapses or collapses. There might be different things that help you. So don't compare yourself too much to someone on the internet. Don't compare yourself too much to me. But find your own way and try to stick to it. And again, I know how hard it is. Trust me, I'm not gonna try to simplify it, but it's so worth it. And I actually thought about making a little anti-relapse plan. So if you guys would be interested in that, let me know. I would love to film a video about for you guys if you want to see that. And otherwise, I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for being on this channel, and I can't wait to make more content for you guys.